Thing you need to know about superchargers in 60 seconds. So what is a supercharger, you may ask? A supercharger is a compressor that increases the density of air inside of an internal combustion engine. Fun fact, this technology has been around since the 1860s and is still being used today in the Hellcat and GT500. Now there's two different types of superchargers. There's a root style where the air is compressed outside of the rotors, and then there's a screw type where the air is compressed within the rotors. Now in comparison to a turbocharger, a supercharger virtually has no lag because it is connected to the crankshaft either by a belt or gears. Another advantage of superchargers is they're very compact, fitting within the space of a V6 or V8 and doesn't require modification of the exhaust. Now there are a couple disadvantages. Number one, root style superchargers are less efficient, requiring the engine to work harder to make the same amount of power. Secondly, all supercharged engines have parasitic loss, where it takes power to run the supercharger, taking away from the overall output. Thing you need to know about turbochargers in 60 seconds. Now, some of the earliest uses of turbochargers have been in aviation, where the higher in altitude you go, the thinner the air is, and you need to be able to compress that air to make the same amount of power that you do at sea level. The way this works is turbochargers use exhaust gas energy to spin a turbine. That turbine is connected to a compressor, and that compressor compresses air and forces it inside of the engine. Now, the amount of power that a turbocharger can produce is heavily dependent on the diameter of the turbocharger compressor and exhaust turbine. For example, a 76mm turbine has more power capabilities than a 62mm turbine, but at the cost of turbo lag. Since a smaller turbine has less mass, it takes less amount of energy for it to spool up. Now, to compensate for this issue, you can always go with a lower area over radius, or AR ratio. Simply put, the lower the AR ratio will lead to a quicker spooling turbo, but at the cost of peak power output. Also commonly overlooked is the turbine housing, measured in T3, T4, and T6. Simply put, the larger the housing, the less amount of back pressure that is developed, and you have higher horsepower capabilities.